Peace, greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts. Oh, the winter just caught me right there. What's going on, family? Make sure y'all click that like button, share the video out. Y'all already know what time it is. Be the power is in the building right now. We're gonna have a conversation today with Gabriel Piemonte running for the alderman seat in the 5th Ward of Chicago. This is going to be a dope conversation. We got our brother Marlon Watson, also from Chicago. I call brother Marlon one of the OGs in this reparation space. So we're going to be bringing him on as well. You would like to, matter of fact, we saving support for the channel today. We would like for you all to support Gabriel's campaign. We're going to put his link in the chat, and we're going to go from there, family. Click like, share the video out. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell icon next to the subscribe button so you can become a part of the notification nation and be informed every time BTP goes live. So let me give some shout outs before we get this in. Arthur Ward set it off, man. Honest for the contribution. Let's do right, brothers. Another of the OGs in this reparation space, hailing from the Windy City of Chicago. BTP Riri is on deck. Brother Vince Jefferson is plugged in as usual. JSB Production said I came for the show. Peace Grizzly Bear. Who else we got in here? Sister Shanna, BTP, Mods is on deck. The MD 2020, Brother Derek. The DMV Freedmen is in the building. Sister Faye XX was going on. Sister April was good, fam. LA born, DC love. I got it right this time. Was good. Sophia Kiwi said we all pulled up. That's what I'm talking about. Ann McIntyre, Jonathan Bryan Freedman, the Boston Freedman is on deck. Let's get ready to get this thing going, family. So without further ado, I am going to bring on our guests, Brother Gabriel Piemonte and Brother Marlon Watson. Sister Ross is in the building. What's good? The DMV Freedmen. Yo, y'all up in here. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure y'all share the video out. So without further ado, let's get Brother Gabe and Brother Marlon up in here. What's going on, fam?
BTP. Mr.
What's
Just
good?
What's up, man?
Oh man, I'm good. You know, Brother Marlon, we've gotten a chance to meet several times over the years. I finally met Gabe this past was that October or September? October at the NAA.
I think.
Yep, the NAASD summit. So, you know, and I've known about Gabe in this reparation space. Hell, I could call you an OG in this reparation space as well, because you was in there before me. And, you know, we're going to get into some of that. But Brother Marlon Watson, man, you know, I think it'll be great if you introduce Gabe and then, you know, just talk about a little bit about yourself, your involvement with the campaign, and then introduce Gabe, and then we'll get into our Q&A.
100%, man. First of all, thank you very much for bringing us on. You are the first person, when I agreed to manage this campaign, you're the first person or the first influencer I called. And
that's right.
Yeah, you're the first one I called, and I told you what I was doing, told you who it was, and it was without equivocation when you want to set it up. So just logistically, it ended up happening a little bit later, which I think works out. So
that's right.
Yeah, but you were the first influencer.
Hey, the tree had to get shook. The tree had to get shook.
So I'm glad it happened like it did. But
That's right.
Called and he was like, "Let's go, let's make it happen." So much appreciation. Thank you and BTP, all the brothers at BTP, United Sons of Daughters of Freedmen, for y'all's leadership in this space, man. You guys are leaders. Don't nobody do it better than y'all, for real. That's
honest.
And I'm not just talking. Nobody does it better than BTP. You guys are impeccable in your research, and like I said, your leadership is much appreciated.
Honest.
So for those who may not know me, and shout out to all the Freedmen, my brother Arthur, my VP, Vice President, Sister Roz. I see the DMV in there. Shout out to all the rest of the Freedmen. For those who may not be familiar with me, my name is Marlon Watson. As Naeem just spoke about, I'm one of the folks who started in this modern day reparations movement from the jump. If you're familiar with ADOS, I don't associate with that. None of us associate with that anymore. We go under the legal status of freedmen, thanks to my brother Naeem for bringing that knowledge to us. But I started the first ADOS chapter in the country, and arguably the boots on the ground movement to the ADOS movement, which subsequently took off across the nation, helped a bunch of chapters put their chapters together. And so that's who I am. And that was in about 2017, 18 maybe. And maybe a year or so after that, that's where I met Gabe. I met Gabe. He was already in Chicago politics, and he was already talking about legislative justice for Black Americans. At that time, he wasn't familiar with the terminology. I don't think he was necessarily talking about reparations at that time, but when I met Gabe, he was talking about justice, economic justice, housing justice for Black people. So that's where I met him. And this was right around when the movement first started. So he's not new to this space. He's not new to Chicago. He's not new to reparations. He's not a Johnny come lately. He's been around just about as long as most of us have been around. And so when he came to me and told me what he wanted to do, and said, I want to open a Freedmen's Bureau in the 5th Ward, I lit up like a Christmas tree. When he said that, I said, man, let's do it. But before that, because I live in the 5th Ward, I looked at all the candidates' website. There are 11 other candidates in this race. I looked at every candidate's website before Gabe even approached me and told me what he was trying to do. And none of the websites, none of the candidates have reparations on their websites. None of them have Black anything. The only thing Black on the websites that I found were the words on the pages. Nothing about Black people. And that was every website available. There's one individual who didn't have a website. I searched his Facebook page and nothing about reparations was there. So Gabriel is the only candidate in this race that has a reparations Freedmen's First platform.
And I want to jump in right there because, and I'm not going to get too deep into the other candidates. If y'all maybe want to delve into that, y'all can, and we can get it. Somebody put Robert Palmer in the chat, right? And we're not going to create no beef between the candidates. At the end of the day, they have to run their respective races. And it's, politics is cutthroat at times. So we know that it gets to that point. But usually when there's one that climbs out of the heap, the others get behind that one. So I seen something where it said Robert Palmer supports reparations, right? We have how many signatories to HR 40? I think over 200 now, if I'm not mistaken. It's up there. It's up there, or near 200. None of these people have reparations platforms. If you ask them,
that's right.
Do they support reparations? Well, they're going to say, yeah, sure, I support. Most of them are going to kind of use that deflectionary talking point and say, oh, I support HR 40 to study reparations. Yeah, sure, I do. No. Do you support reparations, which includes cash payments? Let me be a little more specific. So I just wanted to throw that in there because, we're not going to necessarily do that on the channel tonight. We're just going to basically have a conversation. And like I said, if it gets to that point, we can do it. But those of us that do real research, we searched. And the only thing we could find was a statement that said, I support reparations. That is different from having a reparations platform or a reparationist platform. And I have to stress that because I heard an audio clip the other day of of a detractor. I'll just put it like that. And somebody asked, well, what is an alderman anyway? Like, wait a minute, you in a political space. You got to know what an alderman is. And the person that they asked responded and said, well, you know, an alderman is the same thing as like your assembly person or an assembly member. I was like, no, it's not the same thing at all. And I got the clip and I meant to bring that up. I was actually going to play that tonight just for, you know what I'm saying? I was going to play that tonight. But okay, Marlon, I had muted you out. Okay, you can unmute. Okay, cool, because I was hearing some background. I don't know if you were trying to mute out because you had went off camera. But go ahead and finish. I just wanted to throw that in there. Shout out to all of fam that's up here. Sister Morgan, I see you. Brother Lafayette Ward, what's going on? Sister Roz, Anthony Dickerson, Cynthia Blaine. The Freedmen are on deck. The Freedmen are on deck. Go ahead, brother.
Shout out to Lafayette. I see you in there, bro. But yeah, to your point, Naeem, yeah, so we're not trying to disparage the other candidates. I just want people to know why I chose to work with Gabriel. I knew him. Like I said, he's spoken about economic justice for Black people since I've known him. Mm-hmm. But if he had not have said that my campaign is going to have a reparations frame and it's going to be about freedmen and Black Americans in particular, I would have maybe supported him, but I wouldn't have been this heavily involved in the campaign. Mm-hmm. So, and then there was some talk on Twitter online about other candidates having or supporting reparations. And I just want to set the record straight. No disparagement to them. If they support reparations, that's good. We want everybody to support it. But there isn't a candidate that has a reparations platform, a Freedmen First platform. Gabriel Piemonte is the only candidate in Chicago's 5th Ward race that is his platform. If you go to his website, gabe45.com, that's GABEFORFIVE.com, the first link is reparations.
That's right.
And his defining principles are about the restoration of wealth stolen from this particular ward. So once I saw that, once he told me that, and once I investigated that, I got with my brother Arthur, Cynthia McDonald.
She in the building. Chicago is on deck. Chicago right. Freedmen on deck.
That with the Chicago Freedmen and said, listen, let's go. And once they saw what he was doing, they said, let's make it happen. And so I'll shut up in a second and let Gabe get in here, but I want people to know that we're running against 11 other people. We're running against the University of Chicago. We're not the establishment candidate. Gabe is not the establishment candidate. There is an establishment candidate. There is a candidate that will get University of Chicago support, white institutional support. That's not us. It's a grassroots campaign. And so we need help. We need money. That's the bottom line. So we want you to go to that website, gabe45.com, GABEFORFIVE.com. Donate. If you're available to volunteer, hit the volunteer button, leave your information. We're going to need door knockers. We need phone bankers, and we need money. We need money. So that's my piece, and I'll mute out and let you talk with the candidate.
Indeed. I'm putting your link in the chat right now. Gabe, look, I mean, just set it off, man. Tell the people a little about yourself. Why you chose to run, and just get in. You done said this like dozens of times already, right? At some point, you know what to say because people usually ask the same questions, and sometimes those questions are asked and different audiences are listening. Right now, you have the BTP audience listening in, one of the most politically sound audiences in this space, hands down. I don't think no other audience comes close, but that's my bias. So tell the people a little bit about yourself.
All right. Name first, I can't thank you enough. This is an honor, truly an honor. And I can tell you, for those of us who have been in the Twitter space around reparations since it really kind of set off, there was a really important early period where it was a time of learning. It's become something very different now. But there was a time when people had the opportunity to go into Twitter and say, I don't really understand what's this reparations, what is the movement about? And they would get answers, and they would get links, and they would get explanations. And to me, you have maintained the integrity of that piece of what Twitter was about in terms of modeling kind of the best use of social media. And I can say without any question whatsoever, we're talking about a Freedmen's Bureau in the Fifth Ward in large part because of you, because of what you taught all of us through Twitter. And when I went to Atlanta and when I got to hear you really go into a level of detail that I think very few people even have the capacity to really get into, it was like illumination. The instinct that I had and that, you know, Marlon agreed was the direction to go in was filled with light, because we understood and knew, and it was very clear to me that this is really the only way that we're going to be able to move forward with federal reparations. So the challenge for us, and we see a lot of these fake reparations programs, and we'll talk about this going forward, these local programs, they put the reparation stamp on whatever they're doing. And then people say, well, this is local reparations. That's great. There is no such thing as local reparations, but there is reparative justice. And if you understand what the Freedmen's Bureau was originally and what the political designation freedman means, the implications of that, everything follows from that. And we'll get more into policy and talk about that. But I want to immediately give acknowledgement where it belongs. We're having a conversation about freedmen in this country in large part because of your capacity as an educator and the information that you've shared. And I have tremendous gratitude for that. What I'm doing today, I would not be doing without the movement. The movement has changed me. I will be forever changed. Well, what I've learned through you, through Dr. Darity, through Marlon, through Arthur, other people on the ground, you know, it is the most important thing happening in the country today. So I know some people, and we'll probably get into some questions around ethnicity and you know, race, but for me, everyone should be doing what we're doing. That's and right. Talking about today. This is not boutique politics. This is not reserved for a certain group of people. Everyone needs to get on board, and that's a big part of the message. So I started getting involved in community work in Chicago about 20 years ago. I started doing community journalism about 24, 25 years ago in Chicago. And we realized, I was reporting on the South Side, lived on the South Side, and we realized in about 2001, 2002, that a tsunami was coming to the South Side of Chicago and that it was probably going to have broader impact. That became the 2008 crisis, the housing crisis. But we already saw it coming, and we started having conversations about what we're going to do about it. So the very first thing that I was engaged in that I consider part of the trajectory that got me here today was to organize for a community development credit union. And that's a credit union with a special kind of charter that mandates that it serves everybody. So one of the things people don't realize about banks is, you know, folks will talk about banks and say, I think it's a conspiracy to defraud certain groups of people. It's not a conspiracy. It's in the charter. They are chartered to give out certain kinds of loans. We had a bank on the South Side of Chicago. People can Google Shore Bank. Shore Bank gave out all kinds of loans to folks in communities, providing you know, mortgages, very small loans for the kinds of, you know, challenges that ordinary people have all the time. They were shut down. When we were organizing the credit union, they loaned us one of their VPs because they already saw what was coming, and they said, we're not going to be here. So you guys are basically passing over that legacy. So this was the beginning of my political education in Chicago. My education politically goes further back, but we'll kind of take it one step at a time. And so what I came to understand and realize, first of all, this was a coalition of Black and white folks working together on the South Side. And it was co-led by a white lawyer and a woman who had a long history of organizing on the South Side, a Black woman. And they they did tremendous work together. But I also saw what it did to them, and it taught me a lot also about self-care and how to relate to one another, and how important it is to engage with respect on every level when doing this kind of work. And so anyway, I learned a lot from that. We opened the credit union. It now has $4 million in assets. We've got thousands of members. A lot of that 4 million is people with $100 in their checking account. People who were unbanked, didn't have a relationship to a financial institution, became connected to that bigger movement because of this. And so this is a Freedmen owned, because it's a cooperative on the South Side. The vast majority of people with deposits are Freedmen, and they own it. They elect the board of directors and all of that.
So basically, you have some history of being an activist for the cause of Chicagoans, and largely, freedmen in Chicago, aka Black folks. Basically, you're giving the family a rundown of that, because there's a lot of questions. A lot of the questions, some of the criticism, I should say, is unwarranted. But the fact that you're in Chicago's Fifth Ward, and that these are the people that have to elect you, that's all that matters, and that should be all that matters, right? And you've already have a proven track record of tending to the people in your community as a community organizer, activist, etc. So the political path is, it's a perfect path for those that are in that particular field. You could go ahead, or we can just get into some more questions, but because I really just want you to flow. To be honest.
Well, let me touch on, if you don't mind, I'll touch on a couple more things, and then we can
sure
have some more conversation just to kind of round this out. I've also been, I'm seeing the conversation and some of the criticism and concerns that people have in Twitter, on social media. I want to just touch on, who is this guy? Why is he running? Has he done anything for the community? Fair questions. Even if you're not from, we walk an interesting line in this space, Naeem, because on the one hand, we're really talking about just a small part of the South Side of Chicago, but we're also talking about the movement. And I want to absolutely respect, especially the Freedmen, the Freedmen federal lineage-based cash reparations movement. That's where I stand on this. So let's be very clear about that. That's my foundation, and I draw a frame in terms of my policy development locally from that very specific movement. So moving just forward, one more quick kind of project I've been involved in. We had a church burn, a landmark church in my neighborhood. We organized to save it. We were able to raise a bunch of money, $750,000 in 7 weeks, and we went to the church. And we said, we've got this money that you're going to need to restore this church. You can only hire Black contractors to do it. We will give you all of this, but that's just, that's the condition. And they agreed. They didn't blink an eye. That's important for people to understand in Chicago, because I'll tell you, we also protested when the University of Chicago was building a school in our neighborhood. And we said, we got to make sure there's local, people working on this. And they said they would give us reports. And they had so few people building that school that they didn't have a statistical number. They said we're less than 1% local. They ended up at under 8% Black contractors and people working on site. So I did about, within walking distance of the school they built, I did 100%. I was able to, and it's not that hard. If you believe in it and you're really committed to it, it's a game. It's a game. When people say it's not possible, that's at the very least, that's tacitly racist. They're saying, I can't find Black people to do this work. Well, that's funny, because down the street, a more complicated project, I had 100%, everybody on site. I had somebody going every day checking on site, and it was not an issue. So I just want to make mention of that, because this is, again, this is about recognizing that economic piece is the critical piece. Communities, Black communities in America have been economically ruptured in order to prevent political power. And it's very obvious to anyone who's done the power analysis in our country what's going on. And I believe what proceeds from that understanding and the understanding of the righteousness of the reparations claim is you can't solve any other problems in America until you solve this problem. Because you cannot have one huge part of our population struggling in the way that Black folks are struggling, freedmen are struggling, and then have a just society. It just doesn't proceed. Now, the last thing I want to mention is this is the second time I've run. I ran in 2019. The alderman works with the University of Chicago, works with our largest landlords, and powerful interests in a way that is so detrimental that I feared for the integrity of the community. Literally, I was afraid that people's lives were going to be endangered if she kept being involved. We have the Obama Center getting built in the ward, and we'll talk some more about that too. And so this was a crisis point. I made a list of 5 people. I made a list of 5 freedmen, and I called them up. And I said, I will give you my support. I'll raise money for you. I'll speak out for you if you will run against this alderman. And there were a couple of things I wanted them to do. I wanted them to really be kind of critical of how the Obama Center was being rolled out in the neighborhood. And there was a police reform bill. And we didn't really get that deep into the policy stuff, because before we even got that far, they all said, I'm afraid of what you'll do if I run against her. I'm afraid of the consequences. So fast forward 4 years later, I'm seeing, we didn't know she wasn't going to run until kind of last minute. It's the same scenario. We really didn't have anybody. We had one person running who said he was going to serve 1 term. No one else is running. I'm trying to raise money. I'm trying to see whether I'm going to do it or not. And then she announces, I'm not going to run again. And I said, well, that's it. Then we're definitely going to do this thing. And then once that began, the conversation began. And how I had been kind of transformed from 2019, beginning of 2019, when I started the last campaign, to then was, and this is going to be, we're going to focus on reparations. And it wasn't long before that transformed to, this is a Freedmen First campaign. And that's how we're talking about it. That's how we're framing it.
And that's what's up.
Pause here. Yeah.
No, that's what's up. And that's great, because the people need to hear you. I mean, you've answered so many of the questions that, you really already could just flow. I could shut the camera off and just let you go in, right? But for the sake of, making it appear that we're having an interview here. So we know about you being ADOS. I heard like connected to that movement. Yeah. And I heard that you saying this on a space on Twitter that you also did some editing and some writing.
Yeah.
Well, because I know that over there they have someone that edits and writes for them. So I was wondering if you would come write for us, and you can take like a pen name like Saul Powers or something like that. Would that work? Would that work for you, Saul Powers? I don't know.
I love it. But anyway. I love it. I love it.
Anyway, tell us about. Tell us about. No, go ahead.
You're tempting me. I'm not gonna do it. I want to so bad, but we're gonna be in a whole nother kettle of fish. But I'll write for anybody in the movement anytime. I tell you what, it's a shame how things kind of turned out, but it is funny that there's this sort of parallel. It is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I had that when I heard you say that joke instantly. I was gonna say that on the space, but then I said, nah, he's coming on the platform one of these days. I'll save that joke for the fam.
You put it in your pocket.
Yeah. They're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. So,
well, people are interested. That gentleman has done a very not flattering profile of me. Oh. When I was, when we were having our difficulties back then, I had the audacity to suggest that maybe there was some intentional strife being manufactured, and I got my reward for that disloyalty was my very own feature,
little article, little hit piece. I think I got like
little hit piece.
Lord, I think I got like 2 or 3 of those from that.
Oh, I'm
that
sure
series.
there's a special place. You're probably on the agenda
Oh
permanently.
yeah. Oh yeah.
when
They're
they-
they're probably watching right now. He's probably typing like, yes, I'm gonna misconstrue everything that they say and
I
make it
know
into
there's
a hit.
gonna. I know we got agents watching. I have no question. I have no
No
question.
doubt. So
Yeah.
tell us about, like, this country, and it's not our doing, it's just the way the country is. This country is divided along colored lines, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I would like to hear, before we move forward, a little bit of how you saw Chicago growing up. I think you said you were born in Massachusetts, and
I
then
was
you
born in
moved to
Boston.
born in Boston, and then you moved to Chicago. Tell us a little bit about, whatever your experiences was in Boston, and then when you get to Chicago, and just what your perspective was that would be different from a Freedman's perspective, insofar as, you know, you hear the stories, right? You
Right.
read the books, you study the data. So
That's right.
you see, and though you say Freedman first, you mean your platform. You're not saying that you're a Freedman because you're an Italian American. I don't know
That's
how
right.
anybody could screw that up, but some people, they don't have it all up here. So I just want people to, understand what it's like to see a city like Chicago from a non-Freedman perspective, and then tell people what made you say, yo, you know what, I gotta help. I gotta do something to step up because this isn't right.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, by way of background, that's right. I'm Italian American. I grew up in Boston. My family very active in civic life in Boston, and my grandfather was part of a group of people. So, just like urban renewal impacted so many other cities, urban renewal in Boston was focused on a neighborhood that was mixed. It was Black, Jewish, and Italian. And their assumption was this would be the most, I think, the most vulnerable, because it wasn't one whole ethnic group. It would be easier to kind of divide and conquer. That didn't exactly go the way they, I think, thought it was gonna. They still ended up taking the thing, but it created a kind of, there was for us a time, a confederation or a union or an alliance, if you want to call it. These people got together and they fought. There's a window of time in Boston where Blacks, Italians, Jewish people stood shoulder to shoulder and fought against City Hall. And although they lost that, neighborhood, some of those relationships endured. And my grandfather, had some of those relationships. So I grew up under the false understanding, the misapprehension, which by the time I was in high school, this was dispelled in dramatic fashion, that people work together like this, that this was normal and natural. So, I grew up engaging with folks from different kind of ethnic backgrounds, and then I realized in high school that actually the city was very tribal, in the same way that Chicago is. That if you're in the Irish neighborhood, you don't cross over into the Italian neighborhood, and that it was more like that. And even into the 80s, I went to high school in the 80s. Even in the 80s, that was still true. So fast forward to Chicago anyway. And Chicago was Antonia, how are you doing? Antonia deserves special credit. I'm gonna interrupt my own self, because what Antonia has accomplished in Boston is a miracle. As somebody who's from Boston, I do not understand. You got to teach us a master class on dealing with crazy racists, Antonia, because I saw what they were doing, and I was holding my breath because I thought, yeah, they're going to do it. And we see what happened. I think it's in Rhode Island where they have reparations for white people now, where they have some kind of maybe is it Providence? I'm not 100% sure.
I think it's Providence. I think.
Yeah. And that's New England for you. New England has, because New England has that ancient hate. It has the hate carried over from the British, who got all this started. Anyway, I came to Chicago and I saw a city kind of similar to mine. What's missing in Chicago is an Italian section of the city, even though there is an Italian section in the sense that there's a place you can go and it used to be Italian and there's still some Italians there. There's not like a neighborhood, like a hood, where there is one in Boston. And I mean, when I was growing up, you would hear people in the north end of Boston, which is the Italian section, you would hear more Italian than English. So it was still ethnically kind of tight like that. I just ended up on the south side. The truth is, the culture and the space and the vibe was more familiar to me on the south side than any place else. It felt like an Italian American community, although everyone was black, because people were, I mean, you hear what you hear about, and I don't have to say this to your audience, but you're not going to find a more polite, gracious, just lovely space to live in than a group of black folks who feel like they're at peace in their own community. And then obviously there are spaces where people are more stressed, where, you know, there are challenges with housing and crime and so on. But the main, you know, there are huge chunks of the South Side, even today, as bad as things have gotten, where you still have that vibe. And so I just felt comfortable. It just felt like the place I wanted to live in. And you know, now it's all over because I'm engaged and married to a girl from the West Side. So we're South Side kind of permanently. But what happened, the thing that was kind of transformative for me, where I was just so enraged, honestly, with this community I kind of settled into, being treated in a way that I didn't understand was possible in modern America, was when the projects came down. So I was writing for a community newspaper in Hyde Park, which is the University of Chicago neighborhood. It's the northern half of the Fifth Ward, actually. And it also had a newspaper that was trying to kind of extend its reach to the north and kind of the west, to a community known as Bronzeville now, which is kind of a patched together the neighborhood. The city identifiers is like North Kenwood, Oakland, Douglas. There's a bunch of, but historically this was Bronzeville. This is the city within a city. This is the heart of the South Side. This is where segregation was used, where black folks turned segregation into an opportunity and created a powerful economic empire in a sense. And yes, and Cynthia says it just right. It's not a monolith. From neighborhood to neighborhood, things are very different. And even from block to block, it's really, you really have to know, because everything that we see, all the media tries to flatten all of this. And that's the problem. So I had the experience of, I'm covering, and to me, a bunch of people in a high rise that don't have a bunch of money sounds like the North End. It's like I grew up. So there were still everything in the North End wasn't brought up to code all at once. So there were still buildings that had just recently been converted from being cold water flats. So they were like changing the plumbing, which was at the end of the hallway, into plumbing for every apartment building in the late 70s and even into the early 80s. So the idea that a bunch of people who didn't have a bunch of money were nevertheless all living in one space, to me, was what happens in any community when, you know, not everybody has a lot of wealth. And so I'm reporting on the whole neighborhood, the way the whole neighborhood is. And I'm making friends in the Robert Taylor homes. I'm making friends in Ida B. Wells, Madden Park. People who live on the South Side recognize these names, Lawless Guards. And I can't exactly describe, and you can talk to people, especially in Robert Taylor. There's a Facebook group still. There's, you know, these long, the roots are so deep. The feeling of a whole community of people taking care of each other, helping each other out, doing, you know, the best that they can for each other with not a lot of resources. And the city says, we're going to take this all away from you with no plan of where you're going to go. We're just going to do this. And that's how it is. And period. And goodbye. And when I first heard about this, I thought this is like a bunch of, you know, basically posturing, that the mayor is signaling to white people that we're going to get tough, kind of like the welfare reform stuff.
They're doing that in Baltimore right now. The plan is to create more, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, you know, the tough on crime thing. So we're going to incarcerate the people, as opposed to actually figure out what the root of the problem is and fix it. So I already know, man, it's crazy.
It infuriates me. And when you see it on a mass scale, so we had tens of thousands of people run out of their homes at once, the buildings torn down, and there was no place for them to go. So, I mean, the homelessness problem, people were pushed out into the suburbs, and it was heartbreaking to me, but also the level of betrayal felt so deep to me. And it reminded me of the West End that I was telling you about before, because I can remember as a kid meeting a man, and I have this very specific experience on Hanover Street in the North End. And anyone who knows Boston and knows the North End knows Hanover Street's kind of the main street. And I met this man. He was talking about my grandfather, and they had known each other back in the day. And he's talking, and all of a sudden he just starts weeping. And it was the first time I had an experience. Italian culture is very macho. I had never seen a man cry. And we're in the middle, we're in public, and this man starts openly weeping, and he starts saying to me, I'm like maybe 11 or 12, and he starts saying, why did they do that to us? Why did they do that? Decades later, he still felt so hurt and aggrieved by what his government had done to him. Exact same thing happening fast forward in Chicago. And I'm like, I'm not going to, you can't just keep letting things happen and stand aside. So there were some efforts made to intervene. That's a whole different story. They weren't successful, but I carried that, and I carry that today, the pain of the experience of seeing people I had cared about, I had learned to become friends with, over time. And it's like you have a Rolodex as a reporter. So you talk, everyone I talk to, I ask for a phone number. Then that's right, Cynthia, Cabrini Green, same way. And we had some people, I knew people at Cabrini because the relationships across the developments, and it was the same thing. What happened to Red? Well, we don't know what happened to Red. His building got torn down. He went, we think he's in the suburb. And so I had a, notebook after notebook of phone numbers. And one day I realized every single number I called was dead. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I didn't have any of that community left. It had vanished as if it had never been there. And so, I feel like this is politics in Chicago. Chicago is a brutal, brutal place. To me, Chicago is America with no pretense. Chicago is straight up. We want Black people where we can watch them. Latinos can get a little bit of something, but not too much. And the cops are going to beat on everyone who's not white. Like it's as straightforward as it gets in America, but I think it's the same everywhere. It's just a very, very straightforward thing. And this is the outflow. People have heard about the migration out of Chicago, and there are lots of theories, but this is really what happened, is that they waged war, and the beginning of the war was the projects, and then it was the schools. Rahm Emanuel basically gutted the Black middle class by closing. He didn't just close 50 Black schools, which is bad enough. He took food away from hundreds and hundreds of families, Black families who had a teacher in one of those schools. And that was the way they were able to pay their mortgage. That was the way they kept the lights on. In Chicago, the number of middle-class Black folks who rely on the government for employment, who have expertise but can't get hired because there's so much racism in the private sector here, is really quite large. And so there's been a systematic dismantling of the Black middle class in Chicago for a long time. So that's a long answer to a short question, but I've carried that, and it felt like something has to be done. And I never lost that sense of the injustice of it. And to me, reparations puts the pieces back together. Reparations says, that's right. What you experienced is what's happening all over America. And until Black folks have the assets they deserve, if everybody in the Robert Taylor homes had the $750,000 to $900,000 that they are owed, that would not have happened.
That's right. That's right. So I want to give a shout out as well to Sister Antonia and all the family that is in the chat from Boston. They in there deep. I was actually invited to give a testimonial. I don't know if that's the right word for Boston about the American Freedmen. Myself and Brother Arthur Ward. We really, really went in, and it's great to see this thing happening all over the country. I know some people have issues with the term local reparations. I don't necessarily have an issue with that term. For me, I feel that there are nefarious organizations like NARC and the Cobra who are trying to create these footprints all over the country, so that when a study happens at the federal level, they can say, look at what we did here, look at what we did there, look at what we did here.
Right.
My thing is we have to counter that strategy. That's just the way that I think. And I'm supportive of all local measures, whether we want to call it reparations, state acts of atonement, state equity programs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I support them all. People in the chat saying that they've sent donations. Be the Power has definitely sent donations to the campaign. So,
we
shout
are so
out.
grateful.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Shout out to all the new people that's in the chat as well, real quick. Brother Jonathan, Sister Buffalo, Javon, Lewis. I can't get to everybody. So tell us about the Obama Foundation and the museum.
Yes.
Because I've seen some things that said that there will possibly be some displacement of residents who've been grounded in specific areas for decades so that they can build this museum. You could get into that part and give us a little bit of the origin story of how that, came about and where things are going.
Yeah, absolutely. So the displacement that's happening is, I'm not going to use the word indirect, but I'm going to say what they've done is they've taken public land. And so where it's getting constructed is actually in a park. It's 19 acres of a park. It's the part of Jackson Park, which is a lakefront park, this beautiful park along the South Lakefront. If on any given summer day, if you were to draw a boundary around the area that had the highest concentration of freedmen in it, that's the land they took. So it's a long rectangular strip, which was perfect for reunions, birthdays, graduations. Church happened a lot there. Just a nice big open celebratory space. It didn't have powerful interests kind of supporting it, so it was taken. This is the front yard of a lot of folks who live in apartment buildings like mine, where there is no yard really. If there is one, it's tiny patch of grass on the front, and so that was taken away. But what happened when the Obama Center began the development, and part of this is through a CDC that they actually helped to organize, along with Rahm Emanuel, who was the mayor when this was all happening. They triggered housing speculation. So they drove the idea that not just that there'd be a modest increase in the value of homes, but that this was a time and place to get rich. So this is about I don't know if I want to get into this right now, but I have a theory that's that I've taken from mining industry terminology, which is like extractive investment. It's the idea that people call something investment, but when you look at it, just like investment in coal or minerals is actually stripping it out of a place. When people invest in Black communities, the way it's done in America, they're actually pulling resources out.
That's right.
And so what Obama triggered was that on a scale that is, we have, so since the announcement of the Obama Center, we have hit records in the following areas in the Fifth Ward, which is where it is. The highest foreclosure rate in the city, the highest eviction rate in the city, and the highest homicide rate in the city. And so this is, in my mind, if you do power analysis of how the way things work, this is causal to me. The one leads to the next. And I see Cynthia noting this is absolutely true. It is now just a destroyed patch of land. and it's going to stay that way for a while. It's going to take them years to build this thing. They've also torn up the street that runs up here. It was a major thoroughfare, and we had several bus stops, and this is small, but it's big, eliminated. So if you use a wheelchair for about a mile down the street, there's not a bus stop for you. In the middle of this strip, there's a stop for people who can, basically navigate standing in the street waiting for the bus. But if you have kids, if you're using a walker or a cane, because they don't care about us. And the argument we always made was when the process was going on, we said, look, if you don't allow us input, and if the project doesn't change based on our input, you're baking disrespect for the community into it. And sure enough, that's what's happened. We literally a couple months ago had a noose appear on the site, a noose name. And what did they do? They closed the site down for a few days. They had racial sensitivity training because it's mostly a white and Latino crew. So of course they're doing racist stuff. They're surrounded by black folks. You gave them the jobs and the money. They're coming and going, and there's I'm sure they're making assumptions about no one in the neighborhood wanted it or where. So you are stoking this kind of
That's
anti-black racism. This is a disaster. So you've got on the outside, you have housing speculation, driving prices up, landlords evicting people at the drop hat. You have people who have lived in the community for decades. They've got their property tax bills. Literally, this is not an exaggeration, Naeem. I can send you tax bills that have been texted to me double and triple. So we have seniors who fought for decades to protect their homes, protect their community. Freedmen who have fought against everything that's happened in the 20th century into the 21st century. And who screws them over? Who takes them down? The Obama Presidential Center with the help of the city of Chicago.
Well, that's typical. That's typical of Barack Obama. For those of you who are familiar with this channel, we've highlighted on several occasions Obama's horrible policies during his 8 years in office and how those policies decimated black wealth. So, and then as you're saying, these tax bills that come back double and triple, when you look at the history of Chicago, and Richard Rothstein notes that in his book that I have right here, right? And he's breaking down blockbusting in Chicago, right? The color of law. He's breaking down these practices with these contract housing, what was it called? Contract housing something. I can't think of the full name, but they would get the black families or the Freedmen families to come in, and they would charge them double what they would charge the European or white families that would, be there. And they would get the white families to move out by telling them, well, the Negroes are coming, so your property values are going to go down. So then they would make money off of that. Then they would move the Freedmen in and then charge them double. And if they missed one payment, just one, if they were behind in any way, they would take the house from them, give it to someone else, put them in the same bad contract. So a recent report showed that Chicago lost anywhere from the Freedmen of Chicago, let me say, 3 to contract leasing. That's right, Sister Cynthia. The Freedmen of Chicago lost $3 to $4 billion in wealth due to that practice alone. So when we hear people on the right constantly conjuring up Chicago as this bastion of innate criminality, we don't get the full story as it's broken down in this book right here. We don't get that understanding what made Chicago Chicago. So yeah, you could continue breaking that down. I just wanted to insert that part. Every time I hear Obama, I get triggered.
Yeah. I feel you. And you also, as usual, have an instinct to get right to the heart of the matter. And so for us, an important principle, and I think this has been a point that needs to be clarified. So I talk about reparations as being federal. A lot of us do. And then people say, so you don't want reparations on the state or local level? Well, we'll get into the state level because we have real problems in Illinois around that. on the local level, exactly what you're describing, Naeem. I call it reparative justice. So to me, I just think reparations is a proper noun. It refers to the righteous federal claim of freedmen. This is mine. Everyone has their own approach. Locally, though, I take that frame, I bring it local, and what do I see? Exactly what you were just describing. We have a righteous claim that we can pursue on behalf of freedmen around housing in Chicago. And so I believe, and in the exact study that you're referencing now, although I don't have my hands on it right now, I do have a copy of it in PDF form on my Google Drive. They're quantifying. Now, it is so very American that you can quantify the harm done to Black folks and then say, moving right along.
That's right.
As if that you just established that there's a harm and quantified it.
That's right.
What comes next is redress. And so what we have to do is, at the very least, identify the freedmen in the Fifth Ward who have been disproportionately damaged by this. And I think you pursue it, you expand it from there, but you begin with your own folks.
Right.
What I'm going to do in terms of policy is we want to reinstate the eviction moratorium in Chicago. I think we absolutely need to do that. What I think you can do locally is our big landlords are all looking. So Chicago, every ward is like a fiefdom. The alderman runs everything in the ward, and especially when it comes to real estate. So every large landlord is interested in buying more property, building. They making their money that way. You can guarantee them, if they keep evicting freedmen, they will not get another new project until they cease and desist. And if they persist, then you can blackball them in your ward.
It's almost like the Maynard Jackson approach and what he did with Atlanta, by telling the contractors there, if you don't hire Black, you're not going to eat, basically. So you might as well forget about it. So right. Yeah, I mean, I love it. And that's the mindset that you have to have when you're in a place that the benign neglect is now happening by the people that also look like the people that are being ill-affected in the ward. And so in that, we have to look at our American selves, right? We have to blur the color lines and say, okay, this is not right. So if I'm a Black man and my ward is predominantly white, do I say, well, I'm not going to run, one, and two, I'm not going to do anything because I'm just going to keep letting the whites in this district no, because that's not supposed to be the American thing to do. And that's just not how we're built. You have a lot of, you have a lot of people that just don't understand politics. I said I wasn't going to get into certain stuff, so I keep finding myself catching myself from saying
I hear you though.
Certain things. So you hear me, long as you hear
me. A word to the wise is sufficient, Naeem. I think many of us understand exactly what you just didn't say.
That's
it's
right.
True. And the truth is that you can really, as long as that's your position, people change a lot. The reason we have the problems we have isn't 100% that the landlords are having behind closed doors meetings. It's the landlords and the politicians. And the politicians say, look, you cut me a check, and sadly, it's like $1,000 check. It's it's for short money, no less. And I'll take care of this side of things. And they let it happen. But once the reason I am so explicit about my intention to take this as far as it needs to go is I believe in my heart that talking about real politics, which is what Naeem's really talking about here, that's all somebody needs to know. The problem we face over and over and over again, and I'm talking about in the movement as well, is people aren't willing to negotiate the way you have to negotiate. Do not tell the Democrats that you're going to vote for them no matter what. Even if at the end of the day, you're thinking, yeah, I probably will reelect this guy. Why would you say that in public? Do not negotiate on social media. Do not negotiate where people can see that, okay, you're weak. I see that there's a weakness there. And so what I'm saying, I mean, and I'll do it if I have to do it. But what I believe is that once you show people, and nothing is scaring anybody more than me and Marlon and Arthur sitting down in a room together. That you watch people watch us when that happens. This is the thing that everyone's afraid of, is that you have actual progressive white behavior, the way you're supposed to behave, connecting with, and when appropriate, following the lead of the Black leaders in the community. And that's what we're doing. We're saying, I'm the candidate, but we're running.
That's right.
And I don't get in, we get in.
That's right.
I'm going to have a ward office. Marlon's going to have a Freedmen Bureau. And we're going to have a
That's
door right next. You're coming
That's
back
right.
and forth between those, because this is about all of us, like you just said. And this is another way culturally, there's simpatico between, why I think it felt like a place I wanted to live in. You don't do that to people. And that's how Italians are too. I see you hurting people like that, and there's something wrong with you. And my job is to do something about that, because I can't go back to my culture and I, someone knows some stuff happened. I just watched it happen, and they say, are you a man or what? I understand in 2023, no one wants to hear, are you a man or what? But I'm just being honest. That's how I was raised, and you're supposed to do something.
I'll be questioning dudes all the time, so don't worry about it, man. I question them all the time. Like, what kind of man
I
are
respect everybody, but you got to respect my culture too. And that and that doesn't, take that to have it mean. And now I'm just talking to whoever's watching. Take that to have it mean however you need to hear it. But what that is a fundamental belief that we have to help one another, and that you don't wait. You don't wait for someone else to solve the problem. Like you just said, Naeem, you don't look at that and say, oh, well, I wish I could do something, but I probably shouldn't get involved. If you don't get involved, who's going to get involved? And it's going to happen to you next. And that's a thing that too many people don't understand. And you'll have middle-class people fighting to push poor people out, and then they're shocked when they get pushed out.
That's
what
right.
did you think that was about? You just got played.
Big fish eat little fish, man. And when it comes to Freedmen, that's right. When it comes to Freedmen, it appears as if we're always the little fish. So I definitely understand. So as a reparationist, right? When you get elected, how do you feel that your election in the 5th Ward will have a reverberating impact insofar as that it reaches the federal level? There's going to be an Office of Freedmen Affairs now. We have California doing what they're doing, the great work over there. Shout out to the Cali fam. You got things going on in Boston. You got some things going on in North Carolina that I'm trying to reconnect with at the moment. There's some things going on all over the country, but you're the candidate that's here in front of us right now. So I have to ask, how do you feel that when elected, you will, have such an impact that it will reverberate upward to the federal level? Like, do you feel that it would do that?
No question. So one of the big questions that I think we do have, big conversation we're having, we've got all these fake reparations programs. And I think it creates confusion, and people say, well, how do you do local reparations? Well, again, I don't call it reparations, but you do need a model for local reparative justice. So we're talking about in Chicago, we're creating a model, and we want that model to be replicable throughout the country. And so there's two basic answers to your question. One is what the Freedmen Bureau in cooperation with the ward office will do, and how other people can do that. So I'll give you an example. The city of Chicago has 169 pieces of property that it owns in the 5th Ward alone. There's a really interesting and troubling racist history behind that, because basically through a variety of nefarious practices, they extracted entire houses from freedmen over the course of several decades. They did it in a bunch of different ways. Right after the civil unrest, when we had that series of assassinations, and across the country there was demonstration, right? In Chicago, if your block was a part of that demonstration, they start tearing down homes. Daley just started tearing stuff down. And the lot, literally, it happened at such a wholesale level that you can stick a spade into vacant lots that the city has owned since the 70s. You'll hit the foundation of the house that was taken and torn down, and they just put dirt over it.
Wow.
And those to
So
this,
it's that shallow that you could literally stick a spade in and hit the. That's crazy.
it's
That's
that
crazy.
deep. And it went from there to the drug houses was the excuse. So part of the crack epidemic that was engineered by the federal government on the local level, what the city did was they would identify houses as drug houses. They would say that's a drug house. They would take it, tear it down.
Mm.
Basically same approach. And so we've accumulated, the city of Chicago has accumulated all this property that belonged to black folks, took that wealth away. And now they give it away every once in a while to a developer when a developer wants to do some extract. Anyway, we've identified at minimum 70 we're giving back. So the process will be all you really have to do is establish your lineage. And then if your family has had long-standing ties, and we're still kind of figuring out how we're going to define long-standing ties, but maybe a generation or two, we're giving it to you. It's not, it's not complex, even if it is a prime parcel, because part of the idea is the city will take all this property and then there'll be a big development and they'll give it to some outside developer or they'll sell it, for short money. Why
Mhm.
wouldn't you have that be one, fair market value, two, go to a family that's been fighting for that community?
That's
You're
right.
not,
That's
people
right.
aren't building there except for the fact that black folks have fought for it to be a desirable place. Why aren't they profiting from it? Because the city already extracted that wealth. Give it back. So now when somebody wants to build a high rise, you pay this family the $350,000 that the city was going to take and have it disappear into the black hole of the general fund. That can put a kid through college. That can
That's
start
right.
a business. That can be some of the wealth. And again, this is not reparations. This is reparative justice. You
That's
should give
right.
that back. You should give that back. And we still have to talk about the consequences of chattel slavery. We're not
That's right.
done yet. You give that back locally because it's the right thing to do. And then once you've done that, we're still talking. That's not, you haven't even gotten started in making the things that have happened to this community right. So that's our vision. We've got at least 70 lots that we can do that with. And part of what that's going to do is trigger an interest in the genealogy, which is really the foundation of the Freedmen Bureau, is that we're going to have the technology and the capacity for folks to come in and trace their families back, because we're going to all need to do that. That is
That's right.
also going to create a natural lobby for the federal work. And this is
That's right.
perhaps the most important thing. All of this stuff is very important, but you learn through doing. We will all be reparationists. I promise you. Once I tell you land for free, you just have to do some genealogy. In the process of doing that, come on now, you're going to walk into an office and there's Marlon and there's Arthur and there's Linda Jennings, who we all will eventually get to know better, and other reparationists. Guess what's going to happen to you after you've gone in there 4, 5, 6 times? You're converted, because you understand that's why you're getting these resources, because it's the reparationist frame, the federal reparationist frame, that illuminates this justice claim. This is the reason we're not talking about this stuff, because forever people have said it's not right what's happened, we should do something about it. But what we can say now is a debt is owed. And it's just not somebody randomly saying that. I say a debt is owed, and there is a national reverberation. I say, Freedmen, we need some help in the Fifth Ward. Or Marlon says, Freedmen, we need some attention in the Fifth Ward. And from California to the East Coast, Boston, Antonia, New York, all the way down to South Carolina, everyone's going to help. And that's not hypothesis. Y'all are doing it now. We're
That's
we're
right.
we're expressing this vision, and we're with Naeem, and everybody's here with us. The family is here, and we're
That's
describing.
right.
And if you can get a white man on the south side of Chicago into office, we can do it with anyone anywhere. If we can do it here in this city, and let me tell you something about the Fifth Ward. 71st Street is one of the main drags for Pan-African leadership in the country, and that's not really well known. But Conrad Worrell hangs out there. Henry English used to hang out there. You go, there's a little breakfast place where I can go in there to have a meeting with someone from the nation or something like that, and we are surrounded by Pan-Africanists, and they're talking about the conventions they're putting together. They're talking about the bills they're writing. We want a flag on this street. And when I say that, that is not a metaphor. I'm telling you, the Freedmen's flag will fly above our building. So that's
right.
what we're trying to accomplish.
That's what I'm talking about, man. You know, people can talk and say what they want. And for us that understand what this fight is for, it's clear. Because we see it. We understand the language, we understand the talking points, we understand the process itself, we understand the proposed results, right? The things that you are proposing, we understand that. So you know, we see some people in the chat, and some, you know, it's unfortunate. I blocked a whole lot of people, but I'm not going to block everybody. Some people just need understanding, and hopefully, you know, let's pull this up. He's talking about modern day problems in Chicago with our claim. That's problematic. This comes from, number one, I don't know if you've listened to this whole interview, but to listen to it and then come up with that statement shows that you don't understand this process that those of us who are 10 toes down in this movement understand. And that's problematic. And instead of trying to understand it, we're finding ways to be adverse. And even if we have to make up stuff, it's like, well, I didn't even hear everything, but I'm still just going to type this anyway. Come on. That shouldn't be how anything works at all. So reparations is a claim for unpaid labor. That's it. That's all. Reparations, man, let me go in. Reparations is not just for unpaid labor. Reparations is also for the monies that was looted from the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Bank. Reparations is, and you're wrong, Sister Kiana. You're saying right is right and wrong is wrong, but you're clearly wrong, and I'm proving it to you right now. Reparations is for racial covenants that locked us out of housing, particularly in northern states. Reparations is for those of us that qualified for the GI Bill, qualified for it, and couldn't get homes because they were told no Negroes are allowed, based largely in part on racial restrictive covenants. Reparations is for the economic discrimination that we've faced via financial institutions for decades. Reparations is for the land that was stolen from us by white America. Matter of fact, let me see. Do I have that article right here? Nope, I don't have it pulled up, because I would have pulled. You don't even know what reparations is for, and you're pinning it to this one thing. And this is what I'm saying. As we teach people, they take it some kind of way because you're telling them the truth, because they want their truth, which is limited, to be the actual truth. But that's just not what it is. And this man just sat up here and broke. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this up because this is good, right? This could be like town hall, and we got somebody in the town hall that's being disagreeable. Maybe they misunderstand, yada, 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 right? I'm from Chicago, so I get it. But it should not be coincided with our claim. That just muddies the water. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna let Gabe respond to that because he can speak for himself. But I wanted to speak to you because we've had interactions on Twitter. So just if you want to address that,
I'd be happy to.
All right.
And Kiana, we agree more than we disagree. So I apologize if my communication was incomplete or in some way misleading. I say reparations is a proper noun. It is a federal claim. It is for a very specific thing. And what we're talking about is reparative justice. And I think it is so very important, on the one hand, to reserve reparations as a specific thing to the federal level. Now, I'm inclined to agree with Naeem in terms of what it represents. I don't think it's literally like you owe me work that my ancestors did. I think it's a lot more than work. I mean, there's a consequence to cannibalism. There's a consequence to rape. There's a consequence to mutilation. So to reduce it to like just the labor, I think is reductionist. However, I think we fundamentally agree. I think there's a there's a very specific federal claim that needs to be made. However, we need to I believe that illuminates the argument that on every level, government needs to be held accountable for its active participation in the subjugation of freedmen specifically. So to me, the specificity matters, where you can quantify the harm matters, and the ability to take action matter. And my model, my inspiration, the way we're framing what we're doing in Chicago is based on the reparations frame, but it's not reparations. I agree with you. It is reparative justice. But if someone comes into my office and says, this is reparations, I'm going to say, I disagree, but are you going to help us or not? And if they say, yeah, I'll help you out, then we're going to go to work. Fundamentally, Kiana, this is what I'm saying. If you have, yes, Marcus, all this, yes. If you have been evicted unjustly, if you have a family member who has been, if you were steered away from a place to rent or a place to buy because of prejudicial practices, if you have a family member or yourself had a predatory mortgage with some little clauses and whatnot that ended up causing you to lose your home, any one of a number of other housing practices that have specifically been organized and exploited and deployed against Black folks and freedmen in particular, I believe you deserve to have recompense for that. I wouldn't call that reparations. And so I'm not saying, let's stick a reparation stamp on this and I'm going to get famous like they did up in Evanston. I'm appalled by what they're doing in Evanston. And I have, an associate on that city council who I can't understand why he's doing what he's doing. But, what I'm telling you is I think we can work together. I don't think this is, this shouldn't be what keeps us apart. If you're here, let's talk some more. Find me. Yell at me in person. My door is always open.
That's what I'm talking about. Just go talk, have a conversation with the man. I think, when we get into idiosyncrasies and groupthink, it starts to create these echo chambers. And one thing that's just not true bounces around the walls of the chamber. And then it hits the ears of everyone. And now it becomes just normal. It's like, no, just no. It's just not how things work. And if you're in Chicago, then there's a bunch of other candidates. That's first and foremost. But if you are saying that you're in this reparations space and that you're a reparationist, then there's a candidate that has a reparationist platform. You heard him break that down tonight. And my logical mind says that there's a reparationist candidate that's saying everything that we want a candidate to say that's representing us, that's trying to push for reparative justice, that will have an effect on what we're doing at the federal level. Then we got to, in my opinion, got to get behind that individual. We can't just fight for the sake of fighting, because the truth of the matter is, Gabe, if you was a Black man up here saying this, you probably wouldn't be getting no pushback from anybody. Nobody would probably be misconstruing any words. We'll probably be having people that would be trying to fight to get to interview you first, just so they could say, we interviewed him before BTP. We the man. We did that. Yeah. So, and that's just what it is. That's just what it is. So, I mean, look, I had more questions, but you've covered so much, or really you've covered most of the questions that I asked. So I don't really have any more questions. I think that you laid out your platform perfectly fine. The people of Chicago have a decision to make. We are supporting your platform, your candidacy at Be the Power and the United Sons. Well, let me just say, Well, yeah, I guess we could. Our 501c3 can say we support a political candidate. I don't think that violates the rules of a 501c3, right? To say the NAACP is a 501c3. So, they throw their support behind candidates all the time. So, let me read. Okay, so all right, I'm gonna pull Arthur Ward's comment up first. What kills me is how some of us will perturb the one white man that supports our position, but no smoke for the thousands of whites that support the N'Cobra position. Exactly. That's just craziness to me. So Sister Kiana said, I'm not gonna just support someone just because they are talking a good game. I need to see action. So, okay, if you missed the beginning, Gabe gave a rundown of his history and activism in Chicago, things that you can tangibly touch and research and see for yourself. And you can reach out to the man and have the conversation with him on your own. And then he maybe could show you and walk you through some of the things that he's been able to get accomplished in the city of Chicago. And then you can go from there and make your determination. I'm not saying, Kiana, you got to go out and vote for gay. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we have somebody that's fighting for the things that we're fighting for and saying the things that we want our candidates to say. Words still have to be said. It's not about talking a good game. The words still have to come out of our mouths. We can't just do sign language. And it just doesn't work that way. We have to talk. So, Gabe, is there anything else you want to share or add or even respond?
Yeah,
And, we can start winding it down.
I'll just briefly, for Kiana, I'll just briefly reiterate that you're looking for action. I'll give I've got $5 million worth of action I can share with you. I'm a founding member of a financial cooperative, the Southside Community Federal Credit Union. You can go right down there at 55th and the Dan Ryan and go in there and open an account. You can get a payday loan alternative. You can get a mortgage for a house. You can get a used car loan for a inexpensive used car that you wouldn't get a loan from anywhere else. And I was one of the people who saw that we had a problem and organized to get that thing open 20 years ago. And we have slow and steady built $4 million in assets that are at your disposal, ma'am. And I have also put $1 million of money into the pockets of people who worked on a site. Well, materials and money for people who worked on a site in my neighborhood that I promise you, absent me, that was going to be a white and Latino construction site. It is the Shrine of Christ the King. It's the name of the church. You can Google it. Save the Shrine was the name of the organization, the movement, and then it became Save the Shrine NFP. And we raised $650,000 in 7 weeks. In the end, we raised over $1 million, put it in the hands of the priests that have that church on the condition that they hire Black folks. And they did it. We got 100% higher. So that's money in people's pockets. I can go on and on, but it may be that you're convinced or you're going to think those are just words. As Naeem said, I can't really, I can't dig a ditch for you right here on, I'm in my apartment. So the physical stuff, you may believe me or you may not. You're welcome to come by. And if in the end you don't agree with me, I hope if we're successful, you'll come by and check us out anyway, because we're going to have a nice building. It's going to have opportunities for you and your family. And, I got a whole lot of people on social media real mad at me. And I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, they're still all getting reparations.
Yeah, basically.
It's like I'm still fighting for, because that's what I'm doing. That's what we're all here to do. And we're not picking and choosing. So I'd love it if I could persuade you, but I'm going to love you either way. We're going to still keep doing the work because that's what it's about.
That's right. So, thank you, man. That was powerful. Powerful discussion. The people needed to hear that. A salute to you, Gabe. Again, you have our full support. Marlon Watson, my brother from another, thank you for coming through. The family needed this. It wasn't necessarily to clarify any positions that may have been muddied on a Twitter space. And I want to make that clear. Our purpose for doing this is because we were going to do this anyway. Marlon Ben reached out to me, and we know how edifying it is to have someone come on and as a candidate and have that reparationist spirit moving them forward in this process. And we don't get a lot of that. We've had some reparationist candidates in the past that are not even a third on point as Gabe is. And if we're honest with ourselves, we're just gonna admit that. I'll get to calling some names, but I'm not gonna do that. So, and we got some reparationist candidates now that are sharp, right? So, besides Gabe, right? So It is what it is. And people have to, let me say about the people that's mad on Twitter, these people represent 0.0000001% of people that actually matter. So it is what it is. And outside of Chicago, their voices mean absolutely nothing. We've looked at your website. We've looked at your proposals. We've listened to you speak. We've listened to you here tonight speak about how you plan on implementing the things that are in your platform. And if anybody is not impressed by that, something is wrong with you. You were just given a blueprint on how to run as a reparationist candidate, regardless of your skin tone, because a reparationist is someone that fights for reparations, whether they be black, white, using those terms. Y'all know I can't stand them terms, black and white, but using those terms, I don't care if they're Asian, whatever. It doesn't matter. Are you fighting for? All right, I've been blocking all the trolls. Hold on, let me pull this one up. Lord Abba, you knew not to bring the BS on Twitter Spaces. First and foremost, most of you people are cowards, and y'all wouldn't come in my Twitter Spaces anyway. So I just want to get that part out there. I gotta address that part of it. You people are cowards. You wouldn't come into my Twitter Spaces. Now I'm gonna block you. So, we're grateful. We're grateful, Brother Marlon, OG Arthur Ward. Y'all keep doing what y'all doing, man. Brother Marlon, did you have anything you want to share before we get up out of here?
Yeah. Once again, thank you, man. Can't thank you enough. Thank you for thank the BTP audience.
Hey, hold on. That's one of the names they calling Gabe on. So we gonna take it and we gonna run with it. We gonna take it and run with it straight up. So it is what it is. Go ahead, Marlon.
That's comedy. That's hilarious. But yeah, before we go, I've worked with a lot of campaigns in the city and in the state of Illinois, and I'm never on camera working with the campaigns. It's always about the candidate. But the only reason Gabriel insisted as well, and I think it's a good idea for people who may not know Gabe but know me, know what I've done in the city of Chicago with the ADOS movement when we were with the ADOS movement. Know that in the city of Chicago, in many spaces, people see me and they call me Mr. Reparations. They used to call me Mr. ADOS back in the days. Legislators know me as Mr. Reparations. The kind of work we've done in the city, me, Arthur, and Cynthia used to pack out the library with 50, 60, 70 people at a time doing reparations presentations. We had the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois on fire for reparations, and that took off across the country. Wrote a bill that made violence a health crisis in the state of Illinois that put millions of dollars. This was an appropriations bill that put millions of dollars in the hands of Black organizations and fed countless Black families. So I've written grants that have fed countless Black families and countless Black organizations.
You've sent me something, one of your grant proposals. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, as a blueprint. That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
I've seen. I've actually seen the award letter that you sent me. So I already know your work.
That's
I
right.
already know your work. So
That's right. And so that's why I'm on camera with Gabe when he's when he's in spaces, so people will know. If you don't know him, but you know me, you can be comfortable with Gabe.
that's right.
If I'm endorsing Gabriel,
That's
you know,
right.
and what he wants to do with the Freedmen's Bureau, listen, that is not just this campaign in general. It's not just about getting Gabriel Piemonte in office. It's not just about the city of Chicago. This campaign would set precedents. If we win, when we win, and we open that Freedmen's Bureau, when development comes to the 5th Ward, if it's not 50+% Black in that on that site, it's getting shut down by the Freedmen Bureau. And that's happened in the city of Chicago. We've had legislators and aldermen who shut down sites, but not as a Freedmen's Bureau. That sets precedents. It'll be on 71st Street, and Gabe talked a little bit about the historical significance of 71st Street. I want 71st Street, and this is a lofty goal, but I want 71st Street to be Freedmen Boulevard. 71st Street is historically significant in the city of Chicago. I want it to be Freedmen Boulevard. We want to revitalize. Yeah, we want to revitalize and beautify 71st Street. And 71st, that's the Black part of the 5th Ward. That's where most Black people are in the 5th Ward. It's the South Shore area. We want to beautify that area. We want it to look like downtown Chicago looks. And during different holidays and different events, downtown Chicago is lit up. Why can't 71st Street be lit up? It's in the same city.
Yes,
We pull it from the same pool of money. All right. We want it to be Freedmen Boulevard, and we want to beautify it, and we want at certain corners on 71st Street to be historic markers that marks our territory, to let people know this is a Freedmen community. I want a placard for the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. I hadn't told Naeem this, but I'm serious. I want a block for the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen on a particular corner on 71st Street. And then you walk down a few more blocks, I want a placard for the NAASD, of what they're doing in California, and different significant things like that. So when you come to 71st Street, not only is it a Black community or Freedmen community, but it's a Freedmen community of substance. And we'll show what we've done in the reparations movement, and that story can be told down 71st Street.
That's right.
And so these are some of the things that we want to do. I told Naeem, I have told Naeem this: when we win, I'm flying the whole BTP down.
That's right.
When we open up that Freedmen's office, they come in the Christian or blessed office.
I'm coming to drink some of that expensive champagne you always drinking on.
So,
yes, indeed.
This is significant, man. This is nationally significant.
That's right. That's right.
When we open that Freedmen's Bureau, not only is it in the 5th Ward, many of you may know Mark Carter, King Carter. Mm-hmm. He's always talked about having a city bureau. And so that just extends to that. And I want a state bureau. And then eventually, the same way the reparations movement took off from here, I want to take off across the country, where you get bureaus in one in Georgia, and one in South Carolina, one in California, and ultimately one at the White House, one in Washington, one in DC. And so this is bigger than just Gabe. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than Chicago. If you believe in what we're doing, and let me say one last thing before I close. If Gabe being white is the reason you won't support him, you don't understand what it means to be a reparationist. You don't get it. And I've had friends, good friends in Chicago, that wanted to support him but were hesitant because he was white. And we talked, and they talked with Gabe, and now they support him. So if you're in Chicago and you feel like that, come meet the brother. What I found out about Gabe is it's genuine. It's genuine. It's not pandering. It's sincere. The dude is, and I hate to talk about emotions in campaigns, but the brother has a good heart. He really does. I mean, it's genuine, man. And so if you have some hesitation or some apprehension, come reach out to us and let's just have a conversation. And if you don't support us, let us know why, and let us know what we need to do to get your support, because we need your support.
That's right. That's
So
right.
go to that website. We need help. We're going to need help. It's going to be a lot of money spent in this race. We're a grassroots candidate. We're a grassroots campaign. We're going to be fighting University of Chicago, big institutional money. And that Freedmen's Bureau is going to be an institution where we can fight other institutions.
That's right.
So we need money to make that happen. If you want to help us, go to gabe45.com, GABEFORFIVE.com. Hit that donate link, hit that volunteer link, and help us get Gabriel in office.
That's right. That's right. Some of the comments, boy, I tell you, I'm gonna leave those for now. We're gonna leave. So what I'm gonna do, Gabe, did you have any last words before we shut it down?
Arthur told me I had to say the word phone bank. So we're launching a phone bank.
That's right.
And you know, I don't like getting in trouble with Arthur. I don't know if you ever got Arthur mad, but it's not pretty. So yeah, so volunteer generally. There's so much you can do to help out, especially if you're in Chicago. But we're launching a phone bank that's going to be active, you know, through election day, basically. And you can be a critical part of that anywhere in the country. And you guys know, there's so many people who have roots one way or the other end up back in Chicago. That no matter where you are, if you're reaching out to people, you may end up calling someone who knows somebody in your county, you know, or in your state. So we could use all the help we can get. I appreciate both of you so much. Marlon, let me tell you, the man has to write a book on political organizing, because this is an exquisite campaign. And, you know, it's like a master class working with him on how to execute politics and political organizing effectively. And I owe him the money he deserves. To also, the model of what we're going to accomplish is one thing. The model of how to get someone into office is a whole nother and equally important in some ways, if not more so, approach. And he's doing it. He's doing everything he can do every day. I promise you that. And people who know Marlon know that's just how he does things. And, you know, Marlon and Arthur I want this victory for them too, because there is no question in my mind, if I was getting them the resources they needed, we would get it done. We just have to make sure we do that. So I can't do it all by myself, but, you know, this is a powerful family. This community of reparationists is a powerful group of people. And I just know that we can get this done if y'all are willing and inclined. We could use your help. Gabe45.com.
That's right. Y'all make sure y'all support Gabe. I'm putting the link in the inbox. I mean, the chat again. Phone bank. Like, we're going to coordinate this thing. You know, a lot of people are saying they're going to sign up. We at BTP, we're going to do our part. You already know. So I'm gonna close out and say that first and foremost, honors for you, for both of you coming on. You know, Gabe, we've interacted somewhat over the years, being in the same space, but over the past, I would say, year, we really started to build. Yes. And then once we met each other, like, even remember we was at the spot.
Yes, I know. Listen, y'all, for just $18. Never mind. I'm not.
That was funny, man. Jeez, that was funny. That we're gonna be talking about that for
a long
some
time.
Years. That was funny. I've never seen like a live infomercial that was just all wrong, and then Brother Divine was like,
that was it. He couldn't.
I was wondering what y'all was talking about. I just got it. Divine from Brooklyn.
That was funny. I don't know if y'all seen me tasting. And I was playing with the chess pieces because I was telling myself, Naheem, find something to do, because you're not going to be the one to shut this dude down. And then everybody's going to be like, yeah, Naheem got us kicked out of this guy's place. But it was getting close.
That's what I thought was going to happen. I thought I saw you pacing. I was like, Naheem.
I was like, I seen he had like these African carved chess pieces. I was like, start playing with these. box out everything. And every time I walk past, I would look at Marlon. He'd give me funny looks. And everybody texting me. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, don't even look at your phone no more. Don't say nothing, Naheem, because you're about to bark on this dude and you're about to get us kicked out. And everybody already think of you some kind of way. And they really going to be thinking about you. But Devon stepped up. That's right, Marcus. Devon stepped up. And, you know, he did the Kanye West, Taylor Swift thing. And everybody just left. So that was great. So, you know.
Memorable.
Yeah, that was memorable. That was memorable. And we're in this space and we're leading the way, right? We on the screen, we see a bunch of leaders, and we don't say that in any boastful way. Leaders are leaders. And a lot of times you don't have to say that you're a leader. You don't have to say. Sometimes, no, most times your works are gonna prove that. But a lot of people don't know what Marlon Watson has done in this reparationist space. They don't know about the work that he's done and is doing in the city of Chicago. They don't know that because they've not been around that caliber of individuals. So people have to know these things. And so I'm going to take it upon myself to say that you are looking at leaders. I put work in my own community. I try not to even talk about that stuff at all, but I put work in my city. I've sat down with local politicians, legislators, future school board members, etc. I've sat down, had brunches with the school board president several months back. So I know what leaders look like. I know what leaders look like. So in this reparationist space, the leaders are abound. And unlike the people that we had to detach ourselves from, we're not looking for a cult following of worshipers.
That's right. Real
leaders raise other leaders. That's why even during that time, we brought Brother Marlon on. We brought the dude from Boston on. I was trying to catch myself from saying we brought the folks from Houston on. We brought the Cali fam on. You know what I'm saying? Like we brought them on because we felt that y'all needed to be elevated in front of the people as well, not just the mouthpieces. The mouthpieces are not the hands and the feet and the fingers and feet and the fingers and the toes. It's just not. It's just not. So, three of them to God said, we will be the judge of that. It was too late, three of them to God, because we already been moving and we're already judging. And the work is being produced in the locales that many of you can't see. And the people in those places know who the leaders are. And if you can't see what's going on, all over this nation, then, I mean, it is what it is. We ain't going to talk too much on nothing, but things are happening. Things are moving. Gabe, we are rooting for you.
Thank you so much.
Wishing for a victory. And I will be on the first thing flying to Chicago. We're going to celebrate. And that's just going to be it.
Right.
Another victory. Victory. So I leave you all with the motto of our platform, which is don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. With that, I say peace.
Peace.